What does a perfect draft for the Dallas Cowboys look like? This is a team that desperately needs it. They have the most first round draft capital of any year in the last 20 years for the Dallas Cowboys. They also have the number 2 most draft capital for the Dallas Cowboys overall of the last decade. They've got to make it count. Let's break it down. I'm Warren Sharp, and this is Sharp Football Analysis, and I'm joined by Ryan McCrystal, one of the most accurate mock drafters in the NFL. His ability to prognosticate what some of these GMs are going to do has paid off very cleverly for Ryan, who has been one of the most accurate big board prognosticators in the NFL over the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, he's delivered the number 1 most accurate big board score in history. That was back in 2017. He's been the number 1 best big board drafter as recently as 2021 and currently ranks as the 7th most accurate mock drafter over the last 5 years with his big board. So what better person to bring on to talk a little bit about the Dallas Cowboys and their draft? And this is a big one for them because they have so much draft capital, particularly at the top of this draft, but they don't control everything. Things need to fall a certain way for them to get a guy who could really make a difference. They've got the 12th pick, they've got the 20th pick, and they still have more draft capital, obviously, after that. And if you're looking at the Dallas Cowboys, why do they need this draft to pay off? Well, in addition to having so much great draft capital, they have just 2 playoff wins in the Dak Prescott era, which extends back a decade. And they haven't even won a divisional round playoff game since Patrick Mahomes was born. So this is a team that desperately needs to figure out a way to get over the hump. And maybe if they nail the 2026 draft, especially the first round, they can get there. So Ryan, let's talk about what might need to happen before they pick at 12 and then who they might be able to get at number 12 that could really fall into what would be the perfect way the Cowboys can start the 2026 draft.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a number of good options. I think they're going to come away with a good player at number 12. But I'm going to throw out, since we're talking about dream scenarios here, I'm going to throw out a scenario where Sonny Styles falls down the board and he's available for the Cowboys at number 12, and they can plug him right away into the middle of their defense, and he becomes their green dot linebacker and the leader on the field for them. They need that on defense. It's one of the holes they're looking to fill, and they probably will fill in the first round of this draft. So I'm going to just run through the first 12 picks and show how this is actually a more realistic scenario than you might think. Big picture perspective, the reason why this might happen is off-ball linebackers rarely get drafted in the top 10. It takes a special player like Sonny Styles to even enter the conversation. But I want to run through this very specific scenario that I've laid out where I think each of these teams might pass on him. Obviously, number 1 overall, the Raiders are going to take Fernando Mendoza. Number 2 in this scenario, I've got the Jets taking Arvell Reese. We're expecting them to probably go that direction. The Cardinals need offensive line help. So this is one of the key factors this year that the Cowboys would want an offensive lineman to go in the top 10. The Cardinals could do that either at number 3 or maybe they trade down a few spots like we saw them do a couple years ago when they drafted Paris Johnson. So the Cardinals take Francis Maui-Noah. At number 4, the Titans take Jeremiah Love. That wouldn't surprise anybody. The Giants, they could use another wide receiver for Jackson Dart. They take Carnell Tate. Browns go best available player and take Caleb Downs. Then you've got the Commanders on the board. They need some pass rush help, so they pass on Sonny Styles and they take David Bailey instead. Then you've got the Saints. They're maybe going to go look for a wide receiver. They take Mekhi Lemon, plug him in the slot. The Chiefs at number 9, they're probably not going to take Styles. They need offensive line help, so they take Monroe Freeling. At number 10, the Bengals, they need some pass rush help. They take Ruben Bain. That wouldn't surprise anybody either. Then at number 11, the Dolphins are desperate for help in the secondary. They take Mansour Delane. Sonny Styles is still on the board for the Cowboys at number 12. This isn't the most likely scenario by any means. I'm probably never going to have it in my mock draft as leading up to the draft. I think Styles is probably too good to fall this far. But this scenario that I just laid out, I can't point to any one of those teams and say they are definitely taking Sonny Styles over that guy. So this is a realistic scenario, especially when you take a step back and think he's an off-ball linebacker, and teams typically don't invest in that position early in the draft. Yeah, at number 12, it becomes a no-brainer for the Cowboys. It's a position of need, and you can make a very strong argument he's the best available player on the board at that point. It would be a home run pick for them. It's exactly what they need, and he's the best player at that position. So if this dream scenario does play out, they would rush to get the pick in and take Sonny Styles at number 12.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many Cowboys fans would be so excited if that were to be the case. Sonny Styles is available for them at 12. So then let's play the first round out a little bit further. We've got picks 13 through 19 that have to go off the board before the Cowboys pick again at number 20. In this dream scenario, who would be the perfect player for them to draft at number 20?
Yeah, my dream scenario at number 20 is a little bit more realistic. I'm going to say they take Avieon Terrell, the cornerback from Clemson. They could use some help in this secondary, especially since they've got some guys coming off injury there. I think he's an aggressive corner. He's a good ball hawk. He would fit right into that secondary. I love his versatility too. The fact that you've got some young guys there. Obviously, they drafted Shavon Ravel last year. You add another young cornerback. You're going to want to be able to move them around and find the best exact position for them, the best role for them in your secondary. So Terrell can play on the outside. He can also play on the slot. The fact that he has that versatility, you can move him around a little bit. I also want to mention the reason why I'm taking Terrell over someone like Jermod McCoy, who has been linked to the Cowboys in a lot of mock drafts. It has to do with Jermod McCoy's injury history. As I mentioned, the Cowboys are dealing with some injuries in the past couple of years in the secondary already. Shavon Ravel was injured in college. He only played in 7 games last year as he was recovering from the ACL injury. Deron Bland has missed 15 games over the past 2 years. So you've got your 2 best cornerbacks right now have some very recent injuries in the past. And then I don't think you would want to add a guy like Jermod McCoy, who's coming off an ACL injury of his own. That just creates a lot of question marks in your secondary from a health perspective. Why not go draft a guy like Avieon Terrell, who started 31 straight games to close out his career? He has the versatility to play on the outside and in the slot. It gives you a lot of mix and match options as you're putting your secondary together in training camp. I think if you've got Sonny Styles at number 12, you add it to your secondary with Terrell at number 20, you fix the 2 biggest holes on your defense, and you can feel really good about where you're headed this fall.
Like you said, fix the 2 biggest holes on your defense. They've really focused on that with this draft in the first round. Now they look to the other rounds of the draft where they still have more opportunities to make their team a lot better. Who would be some of the perfect targets or positions that they should be targeting in their next few picks that would really round out a perfect draft for the Cowboys this year?
Yeah, I think ideally the next position I would want to target is the offensive line, and to give yourself more flexibility. You know, they've said that Tyler Smith, who closed out last season playing a little bit of left tackle, they'd prefer to have him stay at guard, where they think he's a Hall of Fame type of player. And certainly what we've seen from him says that he could certainly be that guy if they leave him there. But he also played really well at left tackle. So they ultimately said that although they want to leave him at guard, they're going to play the 5 best offensive linemen. So since they have some flexibility and the offensive line was a little bit up and down and dealing with injuries last year, I think it'd be smart to add another guy to the mix just to increase your flexibility. If you're going to leave the door open to move Smith and mix and match guys on the offensive line, why not improve the depth? It helps you in terms of your options as you're trying to mix and match positions and get the best 5 guys out there. It also helps you because you were dealing with some injuries last year. And that was one of the reasons why the unit maybe underperformed a little bit. So try to add to that mix. Another position I would target, and I think there's a pretty high probability they do this somewhere in rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, is just add some depth at wide receiver. You've got 2 number 1 weapons. You don't need someone who can come in and play a big role, but add someone who can come in and play a little bit in the slot. Add another speed receiver in the slot. I think that you could certainly find someone who's capable of taking some snaps and seeing a couple targets per game in that role. This is a relatively deep wide receiver class. Maybe someone like Skylar Bell in the 3rd or 4th round could be a guy who steps in and you know sees a small role in the slot just to complement your 2 outside receivers in Lamb and Pickens, 2 guys who can beat you downfield. Get a smaller guy who sort of beats you on those underneath routes, and a guy like Skylar Bell I think would be a great addition to the offense.
And that sounds like it would be a great draft for the Dallas Cowboys, a perfect draft, you might say, if it were to fall like that for them. Their fans would be really excited, and probably during the season they'd be even more excited with some of those pieces paying off and winning games for the Cowboys in 2026. If you want more outstanding deep dive analysis like this for the NFL draft, make sure you go to sharp.football and subscribe to our newsletter today. We'll see you on the next one.